Vijayanagara Empire, the most powerful empire of medieval South India. The 13th century AD saw the start of the Muslim rule in some parts of North India with the establishment of the Delhi Sultanate in 1206 AD. However, the late 14th century witnessed the decline of the Sultanate and the emergence of several powerful Hindu states. Among them, the Vijayanagara Empire in southern India was one of the most affluent one along with the Mewar dynasty in Rajasthan. The Vijayanagara Empire was established in 1336 by Harihara I and his brother Bukkaraya I of the Sangama dynasty in the southern Deccan Plateau region. The empire rose to prominence as a culmination of attempts by the southern powers to ward off the Islamic invasions by the end of the 13th century. It lasted until 1646, although its power declined after a major military defeat in 1565 by the Deccan Sultanates. The empire is named after its capital city of Vijayanagar, whose ruins surround present-day Hampi, which is now a World Heritage Site in Karnataka of India. Hampi derives its name from the local mother goddess Pampa Devi. The sources tell us about this empire are many. The writings of medieval European travelers such as Domingo Paez, Fernando Nunes and Niccolo da Conti, the literature texts written in local languages such as Telugu, Kannada, Tamil, Sanskrit and archaeological excavations provide crucial information about this powerful wealthy empire. The accounts written by these travelers and local texts describe Vijayanagar as a wealthy, prosperous empire. It was surrounded by fluctuating frontiers. People spoke different languages and followed different religious traditions. On their northern frontier, the Vijayanagar kings, who called themselves as Rayas, competed with contemporary rulers like the Sultans of the Deccan and the Gajapati rulers of Orissa for the control of the fertile river valleys and the resources generated by lucrative overseas trade. At the same time, interaction between these states led to a sharing of ideas, especially in the field of architecture. The structural ruins of the Vijayanagara Empire helped the archaeologists to know about its art, architecture and socio-economic life. As per the historians, Vijayanagar legacy of sculpture, architecture and painting influenced the development of the arts long after the empire came to an end. One of the most spectacular style is the temples of Hampi. The ruins at Hampi were explored in 1800 by Colonel Colin Mackenzie, an antiquarian from the English East India Company. The administrative and socio-economic features of this empire. 1. The Rayas and the Nayakas. The Nayakas are the military chiefs who were appointed as provincial governors by the Vijayanagar Emperor, who divided the Tamil country into 3 Nayakships of Madurai, Tanjore and Ginji. These Nayaks collected taxes and revenues from the common men in that area on behalf of the emperor. The collections were used for maintaining a strong, powerful army which helped the emperor during his wars for conquest and establishing his supremacy over other states. Some of the revenue was also used for the maintenance of temples and irrigation works. The Amara Nayakas sent tribute to the king annually with gifts to express their loyalty. Kings occasionally asserted their control over them by transferring them from one place to another. However, during the course of the 17th century, many of these Nayakas established independent kingdoms. This hastened the collapse of the central imperial structure. 2. Fortifications and roads. The Vijayanagara Empire created its cities primarily for protection against invasion. The city itself was a fortress and designed as such in every possible way. It was built of massive stone and earthen walls with hilltop fortresses and watchtowers scattered everywhere. As described by Abdul Razak, a Persian ambassador who visited Calicut in the 15th century, the city had 7 lines of forts. The outermost wall linked the hills surrounding the city. The most significant feature of this fortification was that it enclosed agricultural tracts. These tracts were serviced by an elaborate canal system drawing water from the Tungabhadra river. This was built with an objective to avoid the situation of scarcity of food during the wars. Normally, rulers tried to be prepared for such situations by building large granaries within fortified areas. The second line of fortification went around the inner core of the urban complex, and the third line surrounded the royal center with a set of major buildings and its own high walls. The fort was entered through well-guarded gates which linked the city to the major roads. The architecture of these gateways is deeply influenced by Indo-Islamic style, which was introduced by the Turkish sultans. Vijayanagara, the capital, was also a center of commerce and pilgrimage. It was well connected with an extensive network of roads. Smaller roads led to temples, settlements, and irrigation fields. All major roadways could be monitored from watchtowers, gates, and rest houses. 3. Urban settlements. The greater metropolitan region of the city was inhabited by royalty, imperial officers, soldiers, agriculturists, craftsmen, merchants, and laborers. There were large military encampments on the city's outskirts. Outside the metropolis, walled towns and villages were scattered about the countryside. Numerous Vijayanagara period relics have been lost. However, whatever is found indicates that the entire area was dotted with numerous shrines and small temples, pointing to the prevalence of a variety of cults, perhaps supported by different communities. The wells, rainwater tanks, as well as temple tanks may have served as sources of water to the ordinary town dwellers. 4. The trade. Warfare during those times depended upon effective cavalry. The import of horses from Arabia and Central Asia was an important feature of trade. This trade was initially controlled by the Arab traders. However, from 1498, it was taken over by the Portuguese, who arrived on the west coast of the subcontinent. Their superior military technology, especially the use of muskets, enabled them to become important players in the tangled politics of that period. The items which were traded out from Vijayanagara were spices, textiles, and precious stones. Trade consisted of high-value exotic goods, especially precious stones and jewelry. The revenue derived from trade in turn contributed significantly to the prosperity of the state. 5. Agriculture and irrigation. The empire adopted some innovative methods of irrigation as a significant percentage of the population was involved in agriculture. The city was self-sufficient for food and also enabled the city to withstand long sieges during the wars. Numerous canals were dug to provide a perennial water supply to the narrow strip of fertile land bordering the Tungabhadra river. There were water storage tanks like the Kamalapura tank which are still in use. Archaeological excavation has shown the presence of 60 water reservoir embankments, check dams, erosion control walls, and wells. The net result of these systems was a complex having productive agricultural landscape with complex topography, resources, needs, and populations. There were iron smelting workshops indicating vast usage of iron in irrigation techniques. The rise and decline of the empire. In the first 2 decades after the founding of the empire, Harihara I and his brother Bukkaraya I gained control over most of the area north and south of the Tungabhadra river. The successors of this empire further consolidated the kingdom and brought the whole of South India under the Vijayanagara umbrella. Devaraya II succeeded to the throne in 1424 and was possibly the most capable of the Sangama dynasty rulers. Commander Saluva Narasimha Devaraya in 1485 and the general Thiluva Narasa Nayaka in 1491 attempted to reconsolidate the empire. After nearly 2 decades of conflict with rebellious chieftains, the empire eventually came under the rule of Krishna Devaraya. In the following decades, the Vijayanagara Empire dominated almost all of southern India and fought off invasions from the 5 established Deccan Sultanates. The empire reached its peak during the rule of Krishna Devaraya when Vijayanagara armies were consistently victorious. The empire annexed areas formerly under the Sultanates in the northern Deccan and the territories in the eastern Deccan, including Kalinga. The kingdom flourished under conditions of unparalleled peace and prosperity. Krishna Devaraya is credited with building some fine temples and adding impressive gopurams to many important South Indian temples. He also founded a suburban township near Vijayanagara called Nagalapuram after his mother. Strain began to show within the imperial structure following Krishnadevaraya's death in 1529. His successors were troubled by rebellious Nayakas or military chiefs. The empire went into a slow decline regionally. The empire was finally conquered by the sultanates of Bijapur and Golconda by the end of the 17th century. Vijayanagara art and architecture and its significance. Vijayanagara architecture can be broadly classified into religious, courtly and civic architecture as well as sculptures and paintings. Its style is a combination of the Chalukya, Hoysala, Pandya and Chola styles which evolved earlier in the centuries when these empires ruled. It was characterized by a return to the simplistic and serene art of the past. During this period, the local hard granite was preferred in the Badami Chalukya style, although soapstone was also used for a few reliefs and sculptures. The Royal Centre and other buildings. The Royal Centre was located in the southwestern part of the settlement with 60 temples built in it. This indicates the patronage of temples and cults was important for rulers. About 30 building complexes have been identified as palaces. One difference between these structures and temples is that the latter were constructed entirely of masonry, while the palace buildings were made of perishable materials. One of the most beautiful buildings of the later Vijayanagara period in the Royal Centre is the Lotus Mahal, which was a palace for the queen. This structure shows Islamic influence in its arched gateways and vaulted ceilings and is entirely built in stone. While most temples were located in the sacred center, there were several in the Royal Centre as well. One of the most spectacular of these is the Hazara Rama temple. The temple walls depict the scenes from the Ramayana. Another impressive area in the king's palace was Mahanavami Dibba, or the audience hall. Located on one of the highest points in the city, the Mahanavami Dibba is a massive platform rising from a base of about 11,000 square feet to a height of 40 feet. The platform is often identified by the foreign visitors as the House of Victory, from where the king witnessed the celebrations of the Mahanavami or Dasara festival. The Vijayanagara kings displayed their prestige, power and suzerainty on this occasion. The ceremonies performed on the occasion included various religious rituals and sacrifices. Several performances by the dancers, artists and sportsmen. Also, the event marked the display of power by the Nayakas or chiefs in the form of their army of elephants and horses. Temple building is the main and prominent feature of the Vijayanagara art and architecture, which explicit the great influence of Hindu religion on the rulers. They encouraged temple building as a means of associating themselves with the divine, winning support and displaying their supremacy and wealth. Temples also functioned as centers of learning. Consequently, temples developed as significant religious, social, cultural and economic centers. It is most likely that the Vijayanagara was chosen as the capital due to its existence of the shrines of Virupaksha and Pampadevi. In fact, the Vijayanagara kings claimed to rule on behalf of the god Virupaksha. All royal orders were signed in as Shri Virupaksha, usually in the Kannada script. The gopurams and mandapams were the prominent features of the temple structure. The temples were usually surrounded by a strong enclosure. Small shrines consisted of Garbhagriha or sanctum and a porch. Medium-sized temples have a Garbhagriha, Shukanasi or antechamber connecting the sanctum and outer mandapa or hall. Large temples have tall Raya Gopuram built with wood, brick and stucco in the Chola style. The term Raya is added to indicate a Gopura built by Vijayanagar Rayas. Gopuram structures were a mark of imperial authority. Let us take a look at two temples built in Raya style more closely. The Virupaksha temple, as suggested by inscriptions, was built in the 9th or the 10th century. It was substantially enlarged with the establishment of the Vijayanagara Empire. The hall in front of the main shrine was built by Krishnadevaraja to mark his ascension. He is also credited with the construction of the eastern Gopuram. The halls in the temple were used for a variety of purposes. Some were spaces in which the images of gods were placed to witness special programs of music, dance, drama, etc. Others were used to celebrate the marriages of deities, etc. Another shrine was the Vithala temple. Here, the principal deity was Vithala or Vishnu, which was generally worshipped in Maharashtra. The introduction of the worship of the deity in Karnataka is another indication of the ways in which the rulers of Vijayanagara drew on different traditions to create an imperial culture. This temple too has several halls and a unique shrine designed as a chariot. A characteristic feature of the temple complexes is the chariot streets that extended from the temple gopuram in a straight line. These streets were paved with stone slabs and lined with pillared pavilions in which merchants set up their shops. Our historians have done hard work in revealing the past history of the Vijayanagara Empire. By the 20th century, with the discoveries of various inscriptions and travelers' accounts, the Vijayanagara site was preserved by the Archaeological Survey of India and the Karnataka Department of Archaeology and Museums. In 1976, Hampi was recognized as a site of national importance. Over nearly 20 years, dozens of scholars from all over the world worked to compile and preserve this information. Through the extremely detailed surveys, historians have recovered and documented traces of thousands of structures, starting from tiny shrines and residences to elaborate temples, traces of roads, paths, bazaars, etc. Buildings that survive tell us about the way spaces were organized and used, how they were built, with what materials and techniques they were built. For example, we can assess the defense requirements and military preparedness of a city by studying its fortifications. Buildings also tell us about the spread of ideas and cultural influences if we compare them with buildings in other places. They convey ideas which the builders or their patrons wished to project. However, all these investigations do not seem to tell us what ordinary men, women and children, comprising the vast majority of the people who lived in the city and its outskirts, thought about these impressive buildings. Summary. The decline of the Delhi Sultanate in 1206 witnessed the rise of many affluent Hindu states. Vijayanagara was one of them. It was established by Harihara I and his brother Bukkaraya I of the Sangama dynasty in the southern Deccan Plateau region. The rulers called themselves as Rayas. This empire witnessed its golden time during Krishnadevaraya. The sources of information were written text by foreign travelers and locals, art and architecture. Hampi is the most spectacular site of the Vijayanagara ruins. The administrative features of this empire were Nayakas appointed as governors for various areas. The main function was to maintain a large infantry and collect taxes from the people. Fortification of the entire Vijayanagara city, the main highlight of which was the agricultural belt within the outer boundary of the fortification. It was developed to avoid scarcity of food during the wars. The city was the hub of trade and commerce and was well connected with roads. The empire adopted innovative techniques of irrigation with building of canals, tanks, etc. Example is the Kamalapura tank, which is still in use. Reasons for decline of this empire are the rise of the Muslim rule and the emergence of Nayakas as powerful independent class. Art and architecture. It was deeply influenced by the style of the Chalukyas, Hoysalas, Pandyas and Cholas. The architecture which was designed to display the emperor's wealth and power were Mahanavami Dibba or the audience hall, where the emperor addressed the people during the auspicious day of Dasara. Gopurams and mandaps were the prominent features of temple structures. Example, the Vithala and Virupaksha temples. The Vijayanagara architecture was predominated by several temple constructions in various parts of southern India, thus highlighting the importance of religion at that time. Besides temples, other structures built were the Lotus Mahal, which was designed in the Indo-Islamic style.